The U.S. Army is about to undergo the biggest transformation in structure and procurement since the Cold War. On April 30th, Defense Secretary Hegseth signed a memo launching the Army Transformation Initiative, a sweeping reform plan aimed at modernizing the Army by restructuring units, canceling outdated equipment, and streamlining procurement. This means big changes are coming. Among the platforms being cut, the M10 Booker light tank, upgraded Humvee variants like the Sabre and NXT 360, the new JLTV-A2, the Stryker DVH-A1, and the M109, a 752 howitzer. The Army is also phasing out the older AH-64D Apache helicopters and re-evaluating plans to buy more of the AH-64E. The Gray Eagle drone is now considered obsolete and will also be retired. Even more uncertain is the future of the Robotic Combat Vehicle program and the AMPV armored vehicle line. But the biggest surprise of all? The cancellation of the M10 Booker light tank, a vehicle the Army just celebrated publicly in April 2024, marking the first delivery. After 10 years in development, and with only 3 vehicles delivered, the program is now on the chopping block. So what went wrong? In April 2024, the Army received its first M10 Booker, ending a decade-long competition under the Mobile Protected Firepower program. But just 1 year later, the platform finds itself caught in the Pentagon's political crossfire. The first unit to receive the M10, the 101st Airborne Division, quickly noticed some serious design issues. Let's start with weight. For a light tank, the M10 is anything but light. Even without ammo or added equipment, it weighs over 38 tons. Fully loaded, it tips the scales at a whopping 42 tons. To put that in perspective, early models of the T-80 main battle tank weigh just slightly more, and no one would ever call a T-80 a light tank. Yet somehow, General Dynamics managed to market the M10 as exactly that. The weight led to real operational problems. In training, the 101st found that 8 out of 11 bridges near their base couldn't even support the M10's weight. But despite its near-main battle tank weight, the Booker offers only light tank protection. Its turret can resist 30mm rounds, but the hull can only withstand 14.5mm heavy machine gun fire at 500 meters. That's fine compared to lightly armored infantry vehicles, but for a tank designed to engage enemies head-on, it's far from sufficient. What about firepower? Originally, the prototype Griffin 1 was armed with a 120mm XM369 gun, capable of firing modern M829 armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot rounds, the same ones used by the Abrams. But that setup pushed the M10 over its weight limits, so General Dynamics downgraded the main gun to a 105mm M35 gun. The problem? The U.S. Army hasn't widely used 105mm guns in years. The best available round for the M35 is the aging M900 armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot, which struggles to penetrate 500mm of armor. Against modern tanks, that's just not enough. To its credit, the M10 does use the advanced fire control system from the M1A2 SEP V3, giving it solid targeting capabilities. As for the chassis, General Dynamics repurposed the one from the British Ajax armored vehicle, cutting development costs by 30%. But here's the catch. The modular design they advertised actually requires heavy maintenance vehicles to swap parts. So much for rapid deployment. All in all, survivability on the modern battlefield looks grim for the M10. And the price? Nearly $12 million per unit. That's almost as much as a used F-16 fighter jet. In comparison, an M1A2 SEP V2 Abrams costs about $8.6 million. A light tank that costs more than a main battle tank? Sure, some of that price is due to limited production and high R&D costs. But even so, it's a tough sell. But here's the real kicker. The M10 doesn't actually have a clear role in today's Army doctrine. The original idea was simple. The Army wanted a modern version of the old M551 Sheridan, a light tank that could be airdropped by C-130 and provide airborne and rapid response forces with mobile firepower and armor. But somewhere along the line, those goals were quietly dropped or watered down. Only two companies entered the competition: BAE Systems and General Dynamics. BAE's M8 armor gun system met the Army's original vision more closely, but General Dynamics spent more on lobbying. Requirements were repeatedly altered to favor their Griffin II design. This is yet another classic example of how defense procurement can be driven more by politics and money than by battlefield needs. One of the biggest compromises? Airlift. Initially, the Army wanted a tank that could fit in a C-130. But Griffin II was too tall and heavy. No matter how much they tried to trim it down, it wouldn't fit. Once the Army gave up on the C-130 requirement, weight control went out the window. They figured the C-17 could carry two M10, problem solved. But in 2024, the Air Force changed its airlift rules. Now, the C-17 can only carry one M10 at a time. Suddenly, the logistics didn't make sense. If a C-17 can only move one tank, why not just move an Abrams? Even worse, the M10's weight and size mean it needs the same support vehicles as a full-size Abrams tank. But that kind of logistics train doesn't fit into an infantry brigade's lighter footprint. Either you undersupport the tank, or you slow down the whole brigade. Neither option is acceptable. So the Army made a decision. If the M10 is this expensive, this logistically burdensome, and doesn't perform well enough to justify it, then it's time to cut losses. That's why, just over a year after its official fielding, the M10 Booker program is on life support. This story is all too familiar. Endless bidding, unclear goals, shifting requirements, ballooning budgets, constant delays, and then abrupt cancellation. It's hard to escape the feeling that today's Pentagon doesn't always know what it needs. Even when it does, those needs often get distorted by the influence of the military-industrial complex. The U.S. military no longer develops gear based on clear operational gaps. It picks from whatever options the defense industry offers, then tries to make them fit. And after all the time, all the lobbying, and all the billions spent, what do they actually get? Sometimes not much. Stay tuned for more deep dives into defense, strategy, and the future of warfare.